What is going on, everybody? This is Jared Halus here, staff writer with the Maize and Blue Review on the Rivals Network, here with the recruiting writer, Seth Berry. Seth, how are you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, Jared. It's good to be on the show with you for the first time. This is fun. It's kind of a good time to jump into this, obviously, with signing day here, and we're both kind of new to Maize and Blue Review. You've been with the Rivals before, obviously, but this is an exciting time to jump into this and talk with you and talk about Michigan's 2023 class as they jump into signing day and all these guys get ready to open the next chapter of their college, their college football careers here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it's an exciting time for sure. A lot of dreams are going to come true. We're recording this on Tuesday the 20th, so tomorrow, essentially 12, 13 hours from now, a lot of these guys are going to be doing what they've wanted to do since they were young. So it's a super exciting time. Who's Got Next has taken a little bit of a hiatus, but as Seth mentioned, we're happy to be back here. And today we're just going to run through this class as fast as we can. Seth and I are both pretty. We've got our hands full. Let's just say that with the recruiting content as we get into signing day. It is 6:42 where I'm at, and I've got some caffeine on standby. If that tells you anything, so if you're on Maize and Blue Review, you guys are going to love everything that Seth and Josh, Trevor, the whole team has coming. Everyone's been working really hard. It's going to be a fun time. You will see me sip out of this occasionally as we go through. We'll run through the class. We don't want to take too much of y'all's time today. I'm sure as you guys are seeing this, there's already been a lot of announcements been made. Hopefully y'all are enjoying the content that we've been putting out. Seth, quick question for you before we move into that. I just said it out loud and it made me think, am I going to get judged for saying that?
No judgment around here. I don't hear it much with the part of the country I'm at, which is in Michigan, and you're not in Michigan. You're in Georgia, so
right.
We have a different accent here, so that'll be a interesting dynamic for people to listen to. But yeah, y'all is good with me. I'm not. You won't hear me dropping too many y'alls, but you can go ahead and do as many as you want. So
cool deal, right? That's what it's all about. We've got two different accents, two different minds. The more, the merrier. But Seth has been the guy. He's been on M&BR for a few months. He's got tons of information on these guys. You guys, I'm sure, have seen his coverage up to this point. So we're gonna be talking about these guys, and Seth will have probably the majority of the info. I'll plug in here and there whenever I can provide value. But let's go ahead and get it rolling, man. And we'll start it. How about we start it from the first commit, and we'll go all the way to the most recent. So I think it would be Adam, right? Or are we gonna count? We're gonna count that. Cool. Well, let's go right into that.
Kickers count.
Yeah, they sure do.
Especially me as a soccer player. I mean, yeah, kickers are essential, especially with Jake Moody. His career coming to an end. So yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah. Well, tell me what you think about him. Obviously, a long-time Michigan commit now. What's his recruitment been like, and what should Michigan fans expect from him?
Yeah, I mean, this is the guy that they got right from their backyard and right back in Ann Arbor. So, like I said, with the kicker situation with Jake Moody being a grad student, this is a direction they're going to have to look toward, starting next year and seeing what they do with the kicking situation. So, it's a guy who just played in, the Army All-American or Army Bowl game with Samaj Morgan, his fellow Michigan, state of Michigan commit. That's also going to the Wolverines. So he kicked a 49-yard field goal in that game. He was 11 of 14, in his high school this year, and 37 of 37 on extra points. So, it's exciting for him. He's always going to have that feather in his cap on, I'm the first Michigan commit of the 23 class. So that's going to be a cool thing for him. And, we'll look to see if we can see big things from him as he moves forward in his career.
Yeah, 11 of 14, and you said 37 of 37
for the extra points. Yeah.
Wow. for high school, I mean, really at any level, that's super impressive. You see kickers these days, even in the pros, leaving them left or leaving them right. So that's certainly exciting, and somebody that could be super impactful throughout his career at Michigan for sure. You mentioned his teammate Samaj Morgan, who was the second commit behind him in the class. What should we be seeing for him?
Yeah, Morgan, not his teammate, but he's from Michigan, so he's West Bloomfield. But yeah, Samaj Morgan, he's a guy that they have. It's an interesting core of wide receivers in this class because it's a lot of guys, and we'll talk about Frederick more later,
Yeah,
who are kind of quick twitch wide receivers. Get off the ball quick off the line of scrimmage and be able to hit you in the intermediate game, and then after they catch the ball, can do some damage in open space. Morgan's going to be that guy. He's small, he's 5'10", he's about 180 pounds, so he has maybe a little bit of growth for, to put weight on and things like that. But he's never going to be a big guy. He's not going to be an outside, I mean, he can be an outside threat. I mean, he plays a little bit above his size, so I can't say he's not going to grow in that area, but just kind of a home run hitter, a big play, explosive receiver, and then someone that, if he develops, then you're going to see him making a lot of big plays in a maize and blue uniform. He's listed as a 3-star recruit. I think that's a little underrated for him. I think his ceiling's pretty high. I think he can do a lot of good things at Michigan and be able to really ascend as a player if he improves his game and continues to just improve overall as a player.
Yeah. Well, hey, as we've seen time and time again, Blake Corum being a great example of that. The size doesn't always matter. More about the size of the, what do they say? Not about the size of the dog in the fight, but the fight in the dog.
Exactly. You got it.
Hopefully he'll be another great example of that. And, again, we see 3-star guys outperforming their rating all the time too. The thing is, 3 stars they still project, with development to be NFL caliber guys. So again, if he's able to outplay that kind of height dilemma that he has there, and put on some weight, continue to develop under the staff, then absolutely he could be a big time playmaker for Michigan. We'll move on. Another in-state guy. I think a lot of people are high on. Do you pronounce it Cabana or Cabana?
I think I've always said Cabana, but those interpretations are kind of up for grabs sometimes. So when I did the story on him, we actually, we texted back and forth and did that. So I didn't ask him directly the pronunciation there, but we'll get that by the time, at least we're not in the play. I mean, Gus Johnson, as long as he has it, he's the guy that needs it. But absolutely. yeah, I've always said Cabana. So
cool. Well, Cabana, I mean, 4-star guy in the state. You've talked about how important and just how it speaks volumes that Michigan was able not only to reel him in early, but keep him firm throughout the 10-ish months that he was committed to the Wolverines. Talk a little bit more about him.
Yeah, I think that's it with Cole, is that for 10 months he was committed, and as a 4-star guy, as a highly touted recruit, you would expect some other schools to kind of jump in there and try to lure him over, and with NIL and those sort of things. And there's a couple schools that were definitely in that mix and trying to get a hold of him and talk to him. But Cole, like he told me, he never felt like Michigan was he never felt like changed his mind. Michigan always felt like home to him, and as his recruitment played out, and even after he was committed, the Michigan coaching staff made him feel like he was a part of them already, and that's a big thing, to be able to hold on to a guy like that for that long, being an in-state prospect, and then just the type of player he is, kind of an all-purpose back, and is good in space. He's elusive. He can catch the ball. You can get him out in the wide receiver position and line him up against linebackers and create mismatches that way. And, he can run in between the tackles a little bit too. He's not afraid to put his shoulder down and put bull his way into a guy, kind of like, Blake Corum. We see that with him. He's kind of lightning in a bottle, but he can get the 2 or 3 nasty yards too that he needs to get. So yeah, I just really like Cabana overall as a player. And this is a big commit for them in this class.
Certainly. Again, you talk about the 4-star rating, him being able to stay firm in his commitment throughout this entire year certainly projects as somebody that will make a lot of coaches regret not jumping in, throughout this year and even earlier than that. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball now. On the defensive line, you got Brooks. I'm going to go Barr. I'm going to go Barr for this last name. Brooks Barr. Talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, Brooks Barr. I think he's more of a kind of an anchor, edge guy, like a run stopper. He's someone who can play on the inside if you need him to, on the edge in a 3-4 system, but certainly has the physicality and size to be able to knock people off the line of scrimmage and really help support the run game. He'll continue to develop and try to continue to develop as a pass rusher, and in terms of finding some moves to get out the ball and get around and get to the quarterback in the backfield. But he's not going to be bullied. He's not going to be pushed off the ball, and he's a guy that's going to be really physical and just body wise. I think really ready for Big Ten play already. It's just a matter of kind of honing in the fundamentals for him, but or the different parts of his game. But yeah, I like him as well. It's a really good, I think Mike Elston, the Michigan defensive line coach, he's done one of the better jobs, especially in this cycle, for Michigan on the recruiting front, and a lot of talent on the defensive line. They lost Collins Achiampong, which was one of their top recruits, and the defensive end to Miami. But the class is still looking good as far as the defensive line goes, and that's a big loss right there for sure. But hopefully, guys like Brooks Barr will be able to kind of compensate for that and continue to progress as their career, as his career goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly another good win, like you said, for Coach Elston. That will be a common theme throughout this podcast today. He did, as you mentioned, have a lot of great wins throughout this cycle. Next up, dipping into my parts, into Kennesaw, Georgia, about an hour north of where I'm at. They play a lot of good football down here. I always like to brag on Georgia being some good recruiting soil. You talked about Achiampong decommitting and ultimately flipping to Miami. This was a guy who committed to Michigan over Miami, among other schools, including in-state offers and other Power 5 programs. What do you have to say about Benjamin Hall?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the running back room in this class, it's a guy that in Hall that's kind of the opposite of Cabana in terms of being able to. I mean, Cabana can run in between the tackles, but Benjamin Hall is a physical running back, right? And can really get those 3-4 yards when you need it. And when the hole isn't there, just put his shoulder down and get the yardage you need for the first down. So, but watching his film, he shows a little bit of dynamic and dynamicness. Is that a word? I don't even know. And elusiveness, in the open field to be able to, make cuts and get to the second level and beat guys with speed. So he definitely has the ability to do that. And, if he can add that to kind of a consistent part of his game at the college level, it's going to make him a better player. A lot of the talk has been with Hall is that, he fell out of favor. Maybe not out of favor, but they had apparently a pretty deep running back there. It's a running back room at his high school, and he was falling second or third string and losing out on some carries to some other backs. So take that for what it's worth or whatever. But obviously didn't have an impact on his recruitment in terms of Michigan cooling on him or anything like that. So I think they still like him, and we'll see where his career takes him. But interesting player, I think, all the way around for Hall.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, when you're 5'11", well, what we have him currently listed at 5'11", 220 pounds, but also has that dynamicness as we just put into the Webster's dictionary today. It's certainly an interesting build, but a guy who, again, like you were saying, you can put in those third and short or goal to go situations. And most of the time he'll be able to convert those for you. So really good pickup there down in the state of Georgia. Not the only one in this class either, but we'll keep it on the offensive side of the ball for now. This time at tight end, we've got Deacon Tonielli. another guy who committed to Michigan over a lot of his, in-state schools, had a lot of offers from the SEC and other Power Five programs. Really impressive offer sheet for him, as the same for a lot of these guys. But tell us what you think about him.
Yeah, I think he's, when you talk about Tony Ellie, he's very similar to, and maybe not put him on this level yet, but Colson Loveland right now, who's a tight end at Michigan, has really come on in the second half of the season since Eric All's injury. Just in terms of a guy who can really get downfield, he's a vertical threat. At 6'5", he can go up and get the ball and, win 50-50 passes in the air, and is just a threat all around in the passing game, especially as like an outside wide receiver. I mean, he basically played that in high school. He's a receiver. He's not much of a, wasn't used as like a traditional tight end really. At Michigan, depending on what they want to do with him, obviously at Michigan, like you're going to have to block as a tight end to some extent, right? Yeah. You're going to have to develop that part of your game, and I think he has the frame to be able to do that. But just the versatility to where, hey, they can use him as a guy that's going to get downfield and is a vertical threat and who can cause problems in the passing game, but also be able to develop the part of his game to where he can, help out in the run support and things like that, and be able to block at the line of scrimmage. So a lot of potential here. I mean, if all else fails, in the, say he's just a pure pass catcher. I mean, he's a weapon to use in the passing game. But I think, my gut feeling is Michigan is really going to develop him as an all-around tight end to be able to kind of do what they need to fit Michigan's offense.
Absolutely, yeah. He's certainly going to be an exciting player. He's gonna make the pads pop on those running plays and hopefully develop into a guy who can be reliable in the passing game as well. Now is where things get really excited for Michigan. It had been a slower start up to July, but some official visits went down over the summer, and next thing you know, it was 5 before, again, Achiampong's decommitment, but 5 4-star commitments in a row. The first being from linebacker Samaj Bridgman. We talked about offer sheets, and this guy has as impressive of an offer sheet as you'll see from any prospect, no matter what. Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Oregon, you name it, they're probably on there. This was a big win for Michigan. Talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, I really like Bridgman as a player. Just a sideline to sideline type of linebacker, someone who's, he's going to be all over the field. He can come off the edge, he can drop into coverage a little bit, good tackling instincts in the open field, usually finishes plays and can, just really solid all around as a linebacker, someone who's going to fit, I think, this 3-4, Jesse Minter's defense really well, just in terms of the ways he can line up and, his instincts and the ground he can cover and what Michigan likes to do with their linebackers on defense. So yeah, this is a big win for Michigan. And obviously, what turned out to be a, kind of a hot and cold recruiting cycle for Michigan. But this was a time to where obviously, when Bridgman committed, that they were gaining a little bit of momentum and some momentum that they needed at the time. And Bridgman committing definitely, helped some things out in terms of getting this class rolling a little bit.
Certainly. It's shortly after him, you had another 4-star commit on the offensive side of the ball in Frederick Moore. I recently caught up with Frederick. He was, I think, the first story I did on the Maize and Blue Review. Really, really good kid. Says he's 100% locked in with Michigan ahead of signing day, which, again, if you're just now joining us, talking about signing day, which is tomorrow, recording this on Tuesday the 20th. So we are certainly locked in as well. Moore says he is also a good receiver out of Cardinal Ritter, which is a pretty strong program. I think they won the state championship shortly after we got off the phone. So that was a super exciting thing. Certainly nice to bring guys who are used to winning the big ones into your program. What do you think about Frederick Moore?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I talked about earlier with the wide receivers, or some of the wide receivers in this class, a guy that's a really technical, and a good route runner, like I said, gets off the ball really fast, he's going to rely on his technical, route running ability and being able to get open in those type of ways. If he can grow his game again to be more of a downfield threat and just expand his game and in that way, then he could really be a force. But 6'1", 159, I'm sure he has room to put some weight on too. And if he does that and continues to grow his game, it's going to be good for him. And he's a prospect that's he's kind of ascended, as time has gone on. When he committed, I believe he's gotten some more recognition and notoriety as, even after he made his commitment to Michigan. So that's definitely a good sign for what could be, in the cards in his development.
Yeah, he was putting up some big numbers throughout the season. I can't remember exactly what they were. I can try to pull them up really quick. But regardless, I know he had, I think, at least 20 touchdowns on the season. I think he may have had one or two more in the state championship game. So again, like you were talking about, sort of a home run hitter, certainly has some room to grow as well. But all in all, a great prospect, another one of those 4-star guys that kicked off a great month of July. Shortly after him, 6-day period without a 4-star commit. I'm sure the Michigan fans were just knocking at the door waiting to see who was next. It was Amir Herring out of West Bloomfield. Offensive line, another guy who was a big win, tons of offers, good size on the offensive line. Maybe has a little bit of room to grow, but overall, what are your thoughts on Herring and how did that one play out?
Yeah, this played out kind of interesting. It's interesting how it played out. Because for a while it was kind of just set in stone that Herring would end up at Michigan. Obviously, with these West Bloomfield guys, Ron Bellamy coached them, him and Morgan at West Bloomfield before Bellamy became the receivers coach at Michigan. So, it's kind of like a foregone conclusion to where you would say, hey, a 4-star offensive lineman, like, yeah, of course he's going to go to Michigan. He played for Bellamy. Like, let's make this happen. And then there was at one point Michigan, was thought to kind of have cooled on him, and he was listening to, Nebraska and looking at some other options. He never took Michigan totally out of the picture by any means, but it was just kind of going in a direction where it made you, second guess what was going on. And then at one point he came back, I don't know the exact date, but he took a visit back to Michigan, and they really reassured him that, hey, we want you, we as a player, we think you have a lot of potential, and we want you here at Michigan. And that kind of did it for him. And shortly after he committed. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of parts of his game where, he does a lot. He plays with a really good balance. He's really technical, uses his hands very well, at the line of scrimmage, and is a very physical player. I think culturally really fits what Sharon Moore and Michigan's trying to do up front, and just kind of is kind of a nasty, offensive lineman who's going to finish blocks and do all those type of things. Definite areas for growth, but he is, I think he's going to fit well into Michigan's, into their culture, and hopefully he can continue to ascend as a player.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of growth, Eno Edo was a guy who quickly, grew as one of the top defensive line prospects in the country. A guy who's not grown up playing football, but very quickly, became again one of the hotter prospects on that side of the ball, and in the country, currently in the Rivals 250. Although there has been some questionable movement in terms of his ranking. I don't think anybody's doubting what this guy's ability is and could be with the right development. He's got the size. Obviously, the film looks good as well. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, just as far as his recruitment, the main question with Etta was, with Achiampong going to Miami, people thought, okay, what is Etta going to do, since him and Achiampong are kind of close and good friends and whatnot, and people are wondering whether he would, reconsider. He hasn't publicly come out and say, Michigan is the for sure, my school type of thing, but he's active on Twitter. He retweets every time someone, Michigan gets a commit, and He's very, he's still active in terms of, supporting and rooting for Michigan. And, it really seems like the trajectory is just fine there in terms of his Michigan status. But there were some questions there for a while. Of course, as a player, I don't, our rivals guys, our national guys know more about, hey, why does a guy jump up and why do they go lower and things like that. I just know, watching him as a player and watching his film that he has a lot of ability, really good ability to get off the ball and, get to the quarterback. And, he's a really good edge rusher. I like him as a player and think he has a lot of potential. And I, like I said, I don't know why he dropped in the rankings as much as he did, but I think he's a player, especially in Michigan's system, to where they've proven, they can develop defensive ends and edge rushers, and they've turned guys, that might not do much in their first year or two of college, like David Ojabo, and turn him into a second-round NFL pick, first-round pick if he didn't get injured. So yeah, I think Ed is in a good spot, and they're really going to like him, once he gets on campus.
Yeah, that was well said, and certainly a good opportunity for the Michigan staff to continue showing that they are the place to go. If you want to, like you said, develop into a first day or second day draft pick, then you come do it. It doesn't matter what the ranking says, but we know what we see on film, and obviously the staff does as well. And Ed certainly projects to be a super, super high upside guy. Just on a little side note, you talked about you see him active on Twitter a lot. I always kind of like we'll have some superlatives on M&BR tomorrow. But just out of curiosity, from what you've seen, if you had to name one guy, who would you say is recruiter of the year? It's always fun to see the recruits turn into recruiters themselves. So from what you've seen, who's been the most vocal? Who's had the most influence over the rest of the class in terms of bringing other guys in after they were committed?
Oh man, that's a tough one, but I think I don't know how many guys he's brought in per se, but Samaj Morgan, just committing as early as he did, and he's a guy that was Michigan since day one, right? And his family, I should have said something about this earlier. His family's just super nice, kind of stand up people, and I think Morgan's really been an advocate for the class as a whole, and just kind of, been out there to say, hey, I love Michigan. It's the place to be, and, come and play, especially with some of the in-state guys. I think he did that with more so, but which of course, the in-state guys are critical to or could be critical to the success of the class as a whole. So yeah, if I were to pinpoint one guy, I would say Samaj Morgan, especially with the way, him committing early and the way he was just all in on Michigan from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. I always just enjoy kind of seeing that type of thing. It's really fun, when the guys who are used to getting the attention are now the ones giving it. It's always good to see. But we'll keep it moving. Again, this is Jared Halus and Seth Berry from Maize and Blue Review. We're running through this class of 2023 signing class. There's some mixed opinions on this one, but as we go through, I think it just continues to reaffirm that regardless of what the rankings say, there's a lot of upside to this class, and a lot of positions of need were filled. Obviously, and there's some more work to do. The things aren't said and done until February, so it'll be exciting to see what happens between now and then. But we'll keep it moving. Going overseas for this next one, I would love to make an attempt at pronouncing this name. I'm sure there will already be people laughing at me because of the southern accent, so we'll just keep it going. I'm going to go with a Merrick Kumba, if that sounds good to you.
There you go.
What you think about it?
Yeah, that's good enough for me.
A three-star guy, but it's hard to give a guy with such limited film, and obviously you don't really know who he's playing over in France. So the rating's kind of out of the question here. If you go back and look at the early stories that were done on him, I saw the comp is Julius. I pronounce his last name. Is it Welshoff?
Yeah,
something like
Walshkov, or I'm not exactly sure, but yeah. you got the right guy.
I saw that comp and I loved it, and it brought back a story for me as a Georgia guy. I really remember when he was committed to Georgia Tech, being excited about that before Michigan came in and flipped him. I'll tell you what, I've got a Michigan shirt on now, but I was not a fan of them at that point. Certainly another opportunity for them to get an overseas guy and develop him the way they have. So yeah, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I hit on we talked about some of the overseas guys earlier with, and I talked about with Jabo, and then, Kwity Paye was another guy. And, obviously, here, obviously there's a lot of unanswered questions, when you talk about, who do who he plays and, where his development is really at, which obviously he's going to need a lot of once he gets to Michigan. But you just look at the measurables on him, 6'4". He's light, he's thin, 230. Obviously, they're going to do something about putting weight on him and things like that. But just his wingspan, and you could only imagine his type of athleticism and what if he reaches his full potential, what he could do in that Michigan system. In terms of knocking passes down, getting to the pass rush or getting to the quarterback, being able to pass rush, and then using those long arms to maybe drop into coverage and take away some of those flat routes. Michigan did a really good job of that this year with some of their defensive ends and guys like Harrell who were able to. You saw it against Ohio State. When they weren't getting to the quarterback, they were taking away a lot of the screen game, and the defensive ends were really doing a good job in coverage. So he could be one of those guys that end up. Kind of being one of those type of players. So, obviously it'll take a little bit to get the development and, get him on and get him used to playing, physical Big Ten football. And I'm sure, he'll go through some of that in practice and get a good wake up call early on. But yeah, it got to be one of the more intriguing prospects on the board for sure, just in terms of what happens with him going forward.
Yeah. I mean, imagine a 6'4", 230, we'll call it, guy running a 4.47.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's hard to picture, but certainly something that, as you said, so much upside there, and a guy that we talked about Cole Cabana being a guy that a lot of coaches could regret not going after. I think this is another one of those instances where, again, the staff's got a lot of opportunity to develop, and it'll be interesting to see how they do there. We'll keep it moving. Evan Link, offensive lineman out of Washington, D.C. Talk about size, with Kumba. This is a guy on the offensive side of the ball that is going to continue to make Michigan look huge in the trenches. We've got him at 6'6", 290 pounds right now. You can only imagine that will get bigger and better as he gets on campus. Talk a little bit about Link.
Yeah, this was a good pickup, especially when you talked about, before Herring committed, Michigan, Michigan fans were kind of wondering, when are they ever going to get an offensive lineman, in the class in general. Right. And, coming off the Joe Moore Award and, obviously winning that 2 years in a row now. But in this class, they'd won it once the past year, and you're thinking, okay, what's the deal here? What's going on? Are they going to sign any, offensive linemen, and obviously, after Herring committed, and then, they were able to go out and get this one too. And Evan Link was big, obviously, good size at 6'6", and I think he's just really, really fundamentally sound and continue to grow. And, Sharon Moore's system on the offensive line, and obviously they ended up signing, a Phobie to the offensive line just pretty recently too, within the last month. So, just that whole offensive line room was kind of, we were wondering what was going on there, and it's still not the, they would have liked to hit on one or two more, I think, for sure. But what they got in Link, and then, in Herring at first, and then in Phobie, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, I think they can at least walk away with their heads hanging high a little bit, just considering the way that was going in comparison to what it maybe should have been early on.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's a really good point. When you're fresh off the Joe Moore Award, you'd maybe expect maybe more quantity, because the quality we have here, like you're saying, they can still, I think the staff can still be proud of the job they've done up to this point. again, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, still some work to do. Nothing's final yet. It won't be for another couple months. So some good prospects still on the offensive line. So certainly will be exciting. And things are just changing, man. You never know. They're certainly probably going to go for some guys in the portal, like we saw that with Olu. And who knows? They could bring in instant impact guys like that, and this could go down as the best offensive line class in the last who knows how long, depending
Yeah,
on.
and they already got two in the portal, right now, from Arizona State and Stanford. So, that's when you combine the portal and what they're doing on the recruiting trail, just overall, you can chalk this up to be a, does Rivals rank at the 19th class right now? Like when you throw into the portal in the mix, it's probably closer to a top 10 class, so it's it was so shocking to where Michigan's never been this active in the portal before, or in recent memory from what I can remember. And this year's just been totally different in that sense. So it's definitely been a breath of fresh air to see Michigan go out there and, be successful in the portal. And I think, in this class, and, we can talk about this later, but this class, if it ends up in the top 20, whatever it ends up, I know people were a little down on it for, that's kind of been the discussion, but I like to compare it to 2018, when we had I think it was the top, 21, 22, Michigan ended up, and that ended up having guys like Hassan Haskins, Ronnie Bell, guys that really contributed and helped Michigan win their first Big Ten championship since 04, when they won it last year. So just things to keep in mind when breaking this stuff down and talking about these guys. And, it's hard to project out what'll happen for sure. But yeah, just kind of a little nugget there.
Yeah, absolutely. The game's changing with the portal and everything being involved. There's certainly some merit to the rankings, but I'm sure the staff views it as just an opportunity to prove these guys wrong. As you mentioned, it's happened before, and as we go through this class, I feel like all signs point to it happening again. So still, though, being where they're at right now, it's not a bad spot to be in. Still some targets left that we'll touch on once we get through the class, but we'll keep it moving. Another tight end with Zach Marshall now from California. Bigger body guy, could be a nice go up and get it guy when you're in the red zone. Talk a little bit about Marshall.
Yeah, Michigan's kind of become tight end over these last couple of years, and just the way they use the tight ends and just everyone kind of having success. You talk about even this year with Eric All going down with an injury, and Colson Loveland steps up, Luke Schoonmaker steps up, and they're really deep there. And Marshall's another guy that kind of like Tony Ellie who can really go up and get the ball and be a type of downfield threat, and a guy in the red zone that should be able to make some plays for you down there. So yeah, I think like I said, another 3-star guy, but he can definitely play above that caliber, and is someone who's really athletic. And to have two tight ends that are as athletic as Marshall and Tony Ellie in this class, I think that's a good sign for Michigan. They're not. It's interesting because they're not the traditional heavy blocking tight ends. They're more of guys who can make plays in the passing game. But I think that speaks to what Michigan, how confident they are in developing those guys to be able to become kind of overall well-rounded type of players at the position.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. We'll keep it moving. Again, don't want to take up too much time. We'll get to this next guy, the younger brother of a guy that you just mentioned, Ronnie Bell. Someone not as highly recruited. I'm curious what your take's going to be on that. But Kendrick Bell, an athlete in the 2023 class, currently listed at 6'3", 180 pounds, committed to Michigan. Again, the younger brother of Ronnie Bell. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think the offer sheet never got more extensive? Michigan and University of Massachusetts being the only two schools that jumped in. Do you think maybe it was one of those scenarios where you could just tell it's like, all right, this guy's going to play with his brother, and there's really nothing we can do about it? or what do you think was the case there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, there would have been more schools on him if they liked his game. I don't think it was a case to where like he's automatically gonna go to Michigan because his brother plays there. I also don't think it was a case to where Michigan just offered him solely because
Sure.
Ronnie, Ronnie Bell was good. So, hey, let's offer his brother. So, I think it's a little both. I think Michigan definitely saw something in him, that they could, that they think they could develop and utilize him in a way that's going to make him successful. I know one thing about him is that he's very versatile. He's athletic. He played quarterback. He can play receiver, and where he may project, most likely is to the defensive side of the ball and the defensive backfield. So, we'll kind of see where Michigan can use them. But, I don't think Michigan just would have offered him just to say, hey, your brother really worked out for us, so let's take a chance on you. I think there's something they saw in there, despite the low amount of offers, to be able to extend that offer and reach out and have him on, in this class. So yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've already got the older brother, so if it was just one of those things to where they wanted to keep him around or something, there would really been no need. So clearly, there's something that the staff seeing in this guy. As you mentioned, a versatile guy. So it'll be exciting to see how the staff uses him once he's able to get up to Ann Arbor. Moving on, dipping back down into the Peach State for Nathan Afobe, a guy that they were able to pull away from pretty much every school in the state of Georgia, and some other ones, just down in the southeast region. It's going to be a change in weather for Nathan Afobe, but certainly going to a great place in Michigan. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, yeah. This is another big win for Michigan. You talk about the change in weather. If you ever come up here, you're gonna have to get used to that. You're gonna have to bundle up, and if you come down to a game, I'm sure you'll have about 8 layers on. But but yeah, no, it was another big win. With Afobe in the class. I think he's another really solid prospect. We talked about the offensive line class as a whole just being solid in terms of the guy they're getting. Maybe you would have expected, a little more quantity in that sense. But, when you combine with the portal, maybe it's about the right number. But, yeah, I think I really like him as a player, and obviously had a pretty impressive list of offers come his way, and just good that Michigan was able to kind of lure him in from the South, and and bring him up to Michigan to play, and I think he has a good potential in front of him.
Yeah, and again, you talked about the offer sheet. I mentioned the offer sheet as well, and I feel like it's funny. You always see mixed bags on this, but again, we talked about the overall sort of perception of the class right now. But as we continue to go through, it's like, all right, this guy had offers from Alabama and Georgia and the rest of the top 10. And so did this one, and so did that one, and so did that one. So, I mean, really, really a lot to be proud of if you're a Michigan fan where you see these guys coming in. And again, just opportunity for the staff to prove us wrong. So we'll see what happens there. You talked about Bell projecting as a defensive side of the ball type of guy. We've got another athlete in Breon Ishmael out of Ohio. What do you see from him?
Yeah, I think Ishmael, and we'll talk about him and Waller as well. DJ Waller, who come over from the same high school in Youngstown, Ohio. Yeah. This is a guy where Steve Klingskill kind of went over in that area. He's from Youngstown, and he kind of went over there late and kind of infiltrated that whole state, but especially that area, to be able to go out and get these 2 guys. So yeah, that was big. Are we? Wait, who are we on? Who are we talking about right now?
We were just on Ishmael. I think you touched on Waller too.
We're on Ishmael. So okay, I thought we're on Hewlett. That's my bad. So we're on okay. Yeah, so I was talking about the wrong guy. But yeah. So all right. So I'm talking about
you had it right with Waller and talking about Youngstown and
yeah. Yep. So I had it right with Waller. But we are on. Yeah, so we're on Breon Ishmael. Okay, it's okay. He's an Ohio guy. He's from Cincinnati. Yeah. So yeah, athlete. Yep, both Ohio guys. But he's not from the same school as Waller. But yeah, just a really, athletic guy, at 6'5". But yeah, another guy that committed from Ohio, kind of late in the process, and they got a slew of them late, and were kind of able to really get some momentum going in that direction. And just overall, Michigan was able to get some positive momentum headed that way. We talked about class rankings, and we talked about a guy like Etta dropping. This is Ishmael's actually a guy that moved up in the recent rankings. So for whatever that's worth, but I think a solid land here for Michigan late. Like a handful of them were.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some late additions. Again, a couple more targets still out there looming. A lot of decisions still have to be made. We'll touch a little bit on that. Before we get to Hewlett, let's talk real quick about Cameron Calhoun, 6'2", 180-pound defensive back out of, again, Ohio. You talked about a lot of guys committing from that state late. What do you think it was? What do you think? Do you think the staff was just targeting that area? Obviously, a lot of talent in the state of Ohio. Calhoun being another example of that. So what do you think about him? And is he just is Ohio just going to be the next recruiting hotbed?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're getting some guys that may not necessarily have Ohio State offers, but guys that kind of have a chip on their shoulder, maybe partly because of that or for another reason. But I think a couple of the recruits actually spoke to that. Luke Hamilton's a 2024 guy from Ohio that that said, hey, Michigan is. They were with me all along, and Ohio State never really came into the picture with him. But yeah, talking about Calhoun, he's a player that I think Michigan the coaching staff liked. Obviously, as a teammate that also plays defensive back, that's going to commit to Ohio State on signing day. So that was an interesting dynamic with them. I know Michigan went into Winton Woods where Calhoun plays high school, and they were looking at Matthews, his teammate, Jermaine Matthews, to Ohio State, and they offered him, but they kind of were thinking, and talking to some guys, and they said, yeah, we really like Cameron Calhoun as well. And of course, then he ended up eventually decommitting from Cincinnati, and now he's up with Michigan. So yeah, I think he really proved himself, and just watching his film, like I said, and people I've talked to, really physical, really athletic, has a lot of range, can contest a lot of passes in the air and close on balls in the air with his speed and his length. So I think a really, really solid land here for Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure he was pretty satisfied watching the game go down this year. We'll keep it moving. And we'll get to those Youngstown guys now. We'll skip over Roderick Pierce for a second to talk about Jason Hewlett and DJ Waller. As you mentioned, both from the same school, both late pickups for Michigan. What did that mean for Michigan's 2023 class to have these two guys join?
Yeah, so this is who I got confused with Ishmael. All these Ohio guys are hard to keep in line.
You look here, we've got what, the last 5 or 4 out of the last 6 commits.
Yeah. I think with Hewlett, I'll touch on him first. And I talked to Seth Antrim, who's their high school coach over there, and he just talked about the way Hewlett, he's kind of he's very athletic. He's a versatile player. They talked about kind of his leadership role, and he talked both about both players, how excited they were about, first of all, their Michigan offers, and just, how Michigan's coaches kind of treated them throughout the process and all of that. But Hewlett, I think, was a big pickup. Another, I think, a good scheme fit there. And, and Waller is another player that Antrim, spoke really highly about. And, he's really going to be able to add depth to the defensive backfield. The defensive back position was another kind of area to where Michigan was thinking, okay, what's, time to start landing some guys here in the defensive backfield. And of course, Calhoun and Waller came late into the process, and then we'll see what happens with Jair Hill on signing day. But yeah, two guys here to where Michigan, they really got in the game, kind of later and really made some good connections with. And I think, two players who they're hopeful will make an impact. And I know the coaches, the big part with Waller was, when he talked to the coaches was early playing time. And, I don't know how much of that he'll get. We'll see what happens. He can be used in a lot of different ways. He's a versatile player, and we'll see if he can get on the field early to make an impact, because that Michigan defensive, the secondary, it doesn't have a whole lot of depth, but it keeps growing, right? And especially when you talk about guys like Will Johnson and how they played this year, and that defensive backfield continues to keep growing. But Waller could definitely add to that depth and maybe get on the field early. So, but yeah, two guys that they did a good job with late in the process and were able to land.
Yeah, certainly, absolutely. And while we're talking about kind of duos here, we'll go into depth on Pierce real quick, and then we'll talk about another Chicagoland guy, also on the defensive line, and Jamel Howard. But first, let's talk about Pierce. One of the more recent commits in the class, and certainly a big one, was formerly a Wisconsin commit, and has seen his stock rise just even after he committed. A lot of schools didn't give up on him, Michigan being one of those schools. A really good win and a really good flip late for the Wolverines. What do you think about Pierce, and what also, what do you think about Howard, and what's your take on that situation right now?
Yeah, I was, early in this process, and I told this to Dennis, who does another show on Maize and Blue Review last week, is, when kind of evaluating both these guys, who are both former Wisconsin commits, I thought that maybe Howard would be the first one to, if one of them's going to commit to Michigan, or both of them, I thought Howard might be the first one to do so. So it kind of, it didn't surprise me, but when Pierce committed, I was like, okay, that was really good win for Michigan, obviously, to be able to get him when they did. And we'll see what happens with Jamel Howard. I think he's going to wait a little longer, maybe into the late signing period to see what he wants to do. So it'll be up in the air, I think, with him. And we'll see if LSU and Ole Miss, who he had recent offers from, kind of pick up the pace in terms of being able to recruit him and get into play a little more. But if it's just, if they just win Pierce, then that was obviously a big win for him, and someone who can really help them anchor that defensive line, especially in that system, to where, we saw this year Mozzie Smith and, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, two true freshmen that really had an impact, and that were able to come in and do a good job anchoring the middle of that defensive line. And I think Roderick Pierce is a guy who will be able to do that. Maybe not his true freshman year like Graham and Grant did, but definitely be able to make an impact somewhat early in his career.
Absolutely, like you mentioned, it would be great for them to get both, but they're certainly already walking away with a smile on their face after having Pierce join the class. I think a lot of people were thinking that he was an Illinois lean after that official visit. A lot of good things seem to be coming from that, but certainly surprised a lot of people once he locked it down with the Wolverines about a week ago. We talked on Waller already. This is the last guy we have for now. Again, a lot of decisions still left out there. We appreciate you making it to this point. Let's talk about Hayden Moore, the most recent commit in the class, joined yesterday. So we're still learning about this guy a little bit. But yeah, tell us what you think about him. What are your first impressions?
Yeah. One more note on Pierce. It was, I think the Illinois thing was, it was big when Ryan Walters went over to Purdue, their defensive coordinator, that might have had played a big factor in that as well, in terms of how that played out. But yeah, Hayden Moore, that was a big flip at the end that Michigan had there. As a player, I think he is he's kind of, he's a true linebacker, but he's also a guy who can come in on the edge and get to the quarterback. And watching his film, it doesn't look like he has a big burst of speed, but so he'll need, if he's going to play as someone who can come up on the edge and be like an extra blitzer, he'll have a he'll establish a couple pass rush moves and be able to, quickly get around defensive or offensive tackles if he is playing in that style. But as a true linebacker, he has a lot of good intangibles and reads the game really well, fills gaps, and really doesn't miss too many assignments by the looks of it on defense. And is a sure tackler and does everything you want, from what a true linebacker would be. So just a lot of good parts to his game, and that was a good win for Michigan. Another good win late in this recruiting cycle. It's funny because the trend, for this class kind of followed in some sense, last year's class, just in terms of getting, a lot of guys late in the process. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. And, people panicked at the beginning, and this still maybe isn't the tip top class that people wanted or expected, but it's definitely gotten better and gained a lot of momentum as it's rolled down to the early signing period here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh definitely didn't make any new fans from any Big Ten coaches or fan bases this year with the amount of flips and recruiting battles that they won throughout the year. We talk about the perception of the class. Obviously, 2024 is already looking pretty good. We're not even going to come close to talking about that yet. But again, that's going to wrap it up for the class. There's a few guys that we mentioned that are still on the board. We already sort of touched on Howard a little bit. A few other guys still, with some game time decisions. Let's just touch on Jair here real fast. Left Michigan out of his top 5. That was an interesting development. Does that put the Wolverines out of it, or what should people expect tomorrow?
I have no idea what to expect, to be honest with you.
That was a curveball.
Yeah, I think from what we were gathering, it seemed like Michigan had a lot of positive momentum with Jair Hill, and I kind of tweeted out yesterday. I just merely said, Michigan target Jair Hill. He's decided his top 5, and there's the schools, and Michigan wasn't listed on there. So I have no idea what to think about that. I think he might, there's a chance he just might be trolling and, joking around. He likes kidding around and doing that sort of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if, he showed up to his signing day and, put a hat on. I don't know if it's going to be this logo, because this is like the, there's a lot of different hats you can put on Michigan related, but yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did that. I wouldn't be surprised if he committed elsewhere. I don't think to answer your question, I don't think it leaves Michigan out of it. I think they're firmly in the recruitment. I mean, why wouldn't they be? He's taken, several visits and has been in contact with the coaches, and it seemed to be, this is a battle between Michigan and Illinois, it seemed like all along. So I don't know why that would be any different just all of a sudden, on signing day, unless something drastic happened, which I don't think it did. So,
and that would be an all-time troll. I mean, you see a lot of stuff on signing day where like they'll put one hat on, toss it to the side.
Yeah, right.
Hat on, but this is something that I've not seen before.
Yeah, no.
This would certainly be a curveball. We're excited to see what's going to happen there. We'll talk about one more guy before we wrap it up. Obviously, we're getting close to an hour here. We appreciate everyone who's made it this far. But what about Carmelo English? That's a guy that could really change, I think, the overall perception of the class if he were to choose Michigan. What do you think of him?
Yeah. If they were able to land him, I think that would do a lot for this class in terms of the talent and on the offense side of the ball, and the things that English can provide for you in terms of stretching the field and making plays, and just being really dynamic in terms of being a threat in the passing game. So yeah, I think Michigan has a shot in your and I don't know if I'd call it 50-50 or what, but I think, somewhere in that 40 to 50% chance range that Michigan will be able to get this done. And if they do, that's going to be a big win.
Yeah, absolutely. Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, and Jackson State were the other schools that made his top 5. And that's who he's going to be deciding between tomorrow. I believe he said around 10 a.m. Eastern. So we'll be sure to be tuned in there. Obviously, we hope you guys will be tuned in on the Maize and Blue Review as we get into the thickness of the signing day coverage. I know Seth and I, once again, with the energy drinks at 7:40 p.m., we'll be up late tonight working hard to make sure you guys have the best coverage. But yeah, I mean, as we got through this whole class, I think if anything was realized, it's that even though the ranking isn't what people may have expected, no shortage of talent here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case with this class. And we'll see how it plays out, obviously, on the field, and as the years go by, and we look back and see what happens. But yeah, I think it's definitely a class that is at the very least, good enough to be impactful, or at least have a sector of guys that are going to make a for sure impact. And with the trajectory and the depth and the way Michigan's program is going right now, especially with the start of the 2024 class, it's not, there's no need to panic, right? There's no need for concern, and especially with what they did in the transfer portal and continue to do, and may not even be done there yet. So, a really good state of the program right now, and glad to be covering, this angle of recruiting, and excited to see what happens in the coming days here.
Absolutely. It's certainly an exciting time to be a Michigan fan, and an even more exciting time to be tuning in to everything on the Maize and Blue Review. This is a free podcast, but we've got some great free and premium content over there. We're running a fantastic special, I believe, still going on right now, a Christmas special for new subscribers. I'll have to check myself on that. But regardless, well worth the subscription over on the Maize and Blue Review. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if so, we hope to see you over there on the site. Seth, do you have any closing remarks before we wrap this thing up?
No. I think we're over an hour here, so we better log off and shut up. But yeah, I'm just excited to be on, and obviously that's a lot running through all those guys, and in the future we'll try to keep 30-40 minutes, but this is our grand opening, so right. People need to stay with us and watch this whole thing, so if they so desire.
Absolutely. We'll keep it a lot more conversational in the future. For this first episode, it was always going to be a little bit longer when you have I think we're up to 22 guys now in the class, so it's going to be a little bit longer, but you did a great job breaking everyone down. I'm sure everyone enjoyed the analysis, but again, to all of you who listened, we appreciate it. And we hope to see you on the website. Thank you again for tuning in. And we'll be back soon with the Maize and Blue Review and Who's Got Next.